This is Father Nicholas Grace, missionary in the south of Ireland, sharing with you today's Gospel from St. Luke. Jesus said to his disciples, "To you who hear, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. To the person who strikes you on one cheek, offer the other one as well. And from the person who takes your cloak, do not withhold even your tunic. Give to everyone who asks of you. And from the one who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. For if you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who do good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do the same. If you lend money to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners and get back the same amount. But rather, love your enemies and do good to them, and lend expecting nothing back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, for he himself is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Stop judging, and you will not be judged. Stop condemning, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and gifts will be given to you. Good measure, packed together, shaken down, and overflowing, will be poured into your lap. For the measure with which you measure will in return be measured to you." What I've just read there in the Gospel is a big ask. Love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Turn the other cheek if someone strikes you. It's a big ask, even after 2,000 years of Christianity. And I think to live in this way requires a big virtue. The big little virtue. The virtue of humility. If we're to have any chance at all in responding to this request of Jesus Christ, this way to live. And so I'd like to talk to you about this virtue today. As I said, I called it the little big virtue. You see, even though it's a lowly virtue, it has very high origins. Up there with God. The Bible scholars call it the incarnation. That is, God from up there becoming flesh down here, becoming incarnated as a man, becoming one of us. The theologians, the scholars tell us that this is the biggest statement of humility that the world has ever known. But we know that many more such statements would follow in the life of Jesus Christ, wouldn't they? Right from those humble beginnings in the stable in Bethlehem, then his life being reared in an obscure village, his work as a tradesman. Jesus was a carpenter. He was not a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. And when he started his public ministry, he traveled the dusty roads of Israel without a roof over his head. Yeah. Didn't he say himself, "The birds of the air have nests, and foxes have holes, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head"? Well, he traveled those dusty roads and he mixed with the dregs of society, the sinners. And finally his ministry culminated with him being crucified as a criminal, naked, on a cross, humiliated. No wonder he could say, and without pride, "Learn from me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Now, my friends, it's hard for us to grasp the message of Jesus on this magnificent virtue, because in that Roman-dominated world in which Jesus preached, humility was almost a blasphemy. All the men of substance, and their women by association, were interested only in their own personal dignitas, dignity, the honor and esteem in which they were held. But Jesus changed all that. He made humility a magnificent virtue. He is the authority on humility. I do not claim to be an authority on it myself. That would stink of pride. So I don't even want you to consider my words to you today a sermon. I'm not preaching to you. But I would like to share some of the qualities which I admire in really humble people, and what probably most of us aspire to in them. We admire things in humble people and we aspire to them ourselves. There's 3 qualities I'd like to share with you. The first quality is this. It's so attractive to see a humble person. They're so comfortable in their own skin, comfortable with their place in the world, comfortable with their mission from God. And what's attractive is that they seem immune to those things that we do, comparing ourselves to others, seeking recognition from others, feeling marginalized by others. These kind of things, the humble people are immune to this. Have any of you listening not felt marginalized by someone at some time? Most of us at one time or another have felt discomfort when someone who we are in some way in competition with is held up and esteemed and praised over us. Could be a friend, could be a sibling, could be a colleague. And so much so that we feel like we're in their shadow. The titans of humility do not suffer from this at all. You know the story of John the Baptist. He was out in the desert in Israel, down by the Jordan, preaching away. And Israel, half the Middle East it seemed, was going out to listen to him, to ask his advice, to follow him. He turned Israel upside down. The things they said of him. We haven't had a prophet here for 200 years. And John, could he be the Messiah? And then Jesus comes along. And some of the crowd start to go after him. And when the closest disciples of John relate this to the Baptist, what does he respond? Does he get upset? No. He says, he, Jesus, he must increase and I must decrease. John was immune to any of those petty jealousies or feeling marginalized or self-comparisons that most of us mere mortals suffer from. Now, if John was immune to this, it was because he was humble. And because he was humble, he was also modest, which is the second admirable quality that I love, and I'm sure you listeners love as well, in truly humble people. Modesty. Over here we have lots of expressions here in Ireland for modest people. We say things like, oh, he hasn't got his nose in the air. Oh, he's not full of himself. Oh, he has his feet on the ground. And actually, the English word humility comes from the Latin word humus, which actually means ground, earth. Humble people are grounded. No matter how talented they are, they don't make you feel you feel little before their glory. These humble, modest people, they do not pretend to be better than they are. That would be pride. But what's beautiful as well is they do not pretend to be worse than they are either. That would be false humility. And that is the difference, I think, between those who are truly humble and those who are pretend humble or in the early stages of trying to be humble. Now, the truly humble people, they might hide some of their qualities a little bit, but they will use them immediately at the call of charity. When the love of God, when there's a need to help and serve and love our neighbor, they will let those talents shine. Here in Ireland, there's a big devotion to Saint Anthony of Padua, who actually, as you may or may not know, is actually from Lisbon, but had an important part of his ministry in Padua. Saint Anthony, he was educated by the Augustinians. He was an Augustinian friar. That's right, that's the same order as our current Pope. And Anthony was a genius, I mean, a brainiac. He knew the Bible almost inside out. He was a theologian of the highest degree, a fantastic, um, eloquent speaker, so many gifts and talents. But anyway, St. Anthony fell in love with the Franciscans. They were very new on the scene, and he joined them. And after a failed attempt to become a martyr in Morocco, St. Anthony found himself in Italy, in Forli, concealing his immense theological learning and talents. He cleaned floors, he said his prayers, and he said the Holy Mass for a few friars in the middle of nowhere in Forli, living in obscurity. Anyway, one of the Franciscans was to be ordained a priest, and the preacher didn't come. So some of his Franciscan brothers said, listen, Anthony, you're a priest. Could you at least, I mean, you know the basics. Could you say a few words here at the ordination? To which Anthony said, no problem. He went up into the pulpit and he absolutely blew them away with his eloquence, with his knowledge of the Bible, with the fire of charity that burned in his heart. And St. Francis of Assisi heard of this, and from that moment, charity and necessity put St. Anthony in the pulpit, launching one of the most powerful preaching ministries in the history of the Church. You see, the truly humble person might hide their gifts and talents, but the minute that charity calls, they have no problem exposing themselves to praise and using those gifts and talents for God's glory. They're a little bit like the silk tree that's found in the islands around the Persian Gulf. Carnation-like, it blossoms as soon as the sun comes up, only to close up that carnation when the sun goes down. Humility is like this. It closes away its quality, but opens them up when the true sun comes, the sun of charity. I've got one more quality I'd like to highlight that's found in humble people. It's really in the tightness of humility, and it's holy indifference. I mean that these people are indifferent to corrections, to slurs, to slanders, even insults. They're the types of one who can actually take a slap in the cheek and turn away from that insult and hand the other cheek over. Most of us mere mortals, we don't like being corrected. We don't like being slagged off. We don't like being spoken ill of, especially if it isn't true. If we're honest, most of us have really thin skin. But these titans of humility, insults, slander, slurs, it just washes off them like water off a duck's back. They couldn't care less. They have skin as thick as a rhinoceros does. Maybe you heard the story of Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa would look after the poor and the homeless in her houses of mercy by night, but by day she would be out begging in the streets to feed those people. And on one such day she went into a bakery and she asked for bread for the poor, to which the baker responded by spitting in her face, wiping the phlegm from her brow. Mother Teresa, from her 5'1" looked up into the eyes of that angry man, smiled and said, Now can I have the bread for the poor? You can't act that. You can't pretend that. You can't fake that. That holy indifference is a consequence of a profound humility. The same humility that is so comfortable in its own skin, that is so modest in its own talents. A humility necessary, or at least that we're tending towards that humility. It's so necessary if we are to respond to the request that Jesus made of the disciples who heard the sermon I read to you in the gospel today, and which we hear ourselves at least once a year from the pulpit. It is a humility that we ask our Mother Mary to help us not just admire, but to also desire. And desire not just as a badge we can wear, but as a virtue we can live. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
If you found this video fruitful, please feel free to share it with a friend or family member. Or if you would like to learn more about our missionary priests throughout the world and how to support them, please visit iveamerica.org. Thank you for watching, and God bless.